The fluorescent lights of St. Mercy Hospital have always hummed at a particular frequency that sends shivers along my spine. I've often wondered if anyone else notices it. That subtle, persistent vibration that seems to resonate in the hollow spaces between your bones. Tonight, that sound feels particularly intrusive, drilling into my consciousness as I make my solitary rounds through the sterile corridors. My rubber-soled shoes squeak against the freshly polished linoleum, the sound echoing down the hallway in a rhythm that keeps perfect time with the analog clock at the nurse's station. Squeak tick, squeak tick. 3 in the morning, and the hospital has settled into that peculiar stillness that belongs exclusively to the hours when the rest of the world sleeps. During my 5 years working night shifts, I've grown accustomed to this liminal time. Not quite night anymore, not yet morning. The dead hour, we call it. The weight of exhaustion presses against my eyelids. This is my 3rd consecutive 12-hour shift. The coffee in my mug has long gone cold, leaving a bitter film on my tongue. My scrubs feel heavy against my skin, the fabric rough after too many industrial washings. The ID badge clipped to my breast pocket. Alexander Evans, RN. Catches the light as I pass beneath each fluorescent panel, momentarily blinding me with its reflection. I pause at the nurse's station to review my patient charts one more time, the bluish glow of the computer monitor casting harsh shadows across my face. That's when Diane, the night supervisor, approaches. Her face is drawn, the lines around her mouth deeper than usual. Something about her demeanor makes me straighten in my chair. "Alex," she says. Her voice dropped to a near whisper, though there's no one else around to hear. "I need you to handle something unusual tonight." She places a key card on the desk before me. Unlike our standard issue white cards with blue stripes, this one is a dull gray with no markings except for a small number 4 embossed in the corner. I stare at it, uncomprehending. "The 4th floor?" I ask, confusion evident in my voice. "But that's been closed for years." Diane shifts her weight from one foot to the other, her orthopedic shoes squeaking slightly. I notice her hands, always steady. Precise hands that can find a vein on the most difficult patient are trembling slightly. "We've had to reopen a section," she explains, still not meeting my eyes directly. The overhead light catches the silver strands in her otherwise dark hair. "Just one room, one patient, terminal case." I wait for more explanation, but she offers none. The silence between us stretches uncomfortably, filled only by the distant sounds of medical equipment and the muffled moans of patients in pain despite their medications. "What's wrong with them?" I finally ask, picking up the unfamiliar key card. It feels unexpectedly cold against my fingertips, as though it had been stored in a freezer rather than Diane's pocket. "End-stage cancer," she says too quickly. "All you need to do is check vitals hourly and ensure the morphine drip doesn't fail. The patient is comatose, non-responsive. Should be an easy assignment." Her tone suggests otherwise. In 5 years, I've never seen Diane look so unsettled. Why isolate one terminal patient on an entire closed floor? I press, a sense of unease building in my chest. Diane's eyes finally meet mine, and what I see there, a flicker of something that might be fear, makes my heart stutter. "Hospital policy," she says flatly. "Isolation protocol for certain conditions." Before I can ask which conditions specifically require such extreme measures, her pager buzzes insistently at her hip. She glances down at it with what looks suspiciously like relief. "Emergency in the ER. I have to go." She turns to leave, then hesitates. "Alex, stay on schedule with those hourly checks, but don't linger up there. Do what's required and come back down immediately. Understand?" With those ominous instructions hanging in the air between us, she hurries away, leaving me alone with the strange gray key card and a growing sense of apprehension. The journey to the 4th floor feels like crossing a threshold into another world. The elevator itself seems reluctant to take me there, the buttons flickering erratically as I press the fated 4. The ascent is agonizingly slow, accompanied by groans and creaks from the machinery that I've never noticed before. My reflection in the polished metal doors looks pale and distorted, dark circles beneath my eyes giving me a haunted appearance. When the doors finally slide open with a stuttering hesitation, I'm confronted by absolute darkness. Not the dim lighting of power-saving mode used in other areas of the hospital at night, but complete, oppressive blackness that seems to push against the elevator's interior light like a living thing. I fumble for my phone in my pocket, my fingers clumsy with sudden anxiety. The screen illuminates, casting a weak glow that does little to penetrate the darkness beyond. 3:17 a.m. glares back at me from the display, along with a notification that makes my stomach clench. No service. Hospitals are notorious for poor reception, but I've never completely lost signal in the building before. Taking a deep breath that fills my nostrils with an unfamiliar scent, not the usual antiseptic hospital smell, but something older, earthier, I step forward. My phone's flashlight sweeps across the space, revealing a corridor that bears little resemblance to the modernized floors below. The walls are painted a faded mint green, color peeling in long strips that curl away from the surface like dead skin. The floor is covered in cracked linoleum tiles, submissing entirely to reveal the concrete subfloor beneath. Abandoned equipment lines the walls, ancient wheelchairs with cracked leather seats, for stands tarnished with age, rolling trays covered in a thick layer of undisturbed dust. My light catches a panel on the wall, and I move toward it cautiously. A light switch. I flip it without much hope, but to my surprise, fluorescent tubes flicker reluctantly to life overhead. They buzz much louder here than on the lower floors, an angry, inconsistent sound that makes me wince. Several of the tubes remain dark, creating pools of shadow between islands of harsh, pulsing light. The illumination does little to make the space less unnerving. If anything, seeing the full extent of the floor's dilapidation only increases my discomfort. Water damage stains the ceiling in expanding brown blooms. A gurney lies overturned at a corner, one wheel missing. A bulletin board still displays faded notices dated from 17 years ago, the last time this floor was apparently in use. According to Diane's hurried instructions, my patient is in room 407. The room numbers are barely visible, the metal placards tarnished almost to illegibility. I move slowly down the corridor, my footsteps echoing in a way that suggests vast empty spaces beyond the visible hallway. Each doorway I pass reveals glimpses of abandoned patient rooms, stripped beds, disconnected equipment, curtain rails empty of privacy drapes. Something skitters across the floor ahead of me, disappearing into a shadowy corner. A rat, most likely. I tell myself this is normal for an unused space, even as my heart rate accelerates. Room 407 is at the far end of the corridor, apart from the others. Unlike the other doors, which stand partially open, this one is firmly closed. A newer-looking electronic lock has been installed beside it, with a slot for my gray key card. This modern addition looks jarringly out of place among the decay surrounding it. As I approach, I notice something else that sets my nerves on edge. From beneath every other door in the corridor comes the expected darkness of unused rooms. But from beneath the door of 407, a faint, pulsing light emerges, greenish and sickly, like the glow of ancient computer monitors. More disturbing still is the silence. Every patient room normally has its own symphony of mechanical noise. The rhythmic beep of heart monitors, the soft hiss of oxygen, the measured clicks of 4 drips. But from 407, I hear nothing. Absolute silence. I check my watch. 3:27 a.m. Time for my first vitals check. My hand trembles slightly as I raise the key card to the scanner. For a moment, I consider turning back, making up some excuse for Diane. But professional responsibility, and I admit, a terrible curiosity, propels me forward. The lock disengages with a soft click that sounds unnaturally loud in the silent corridor. The door is unexpectedly heavy, as if something on the other side resists my entrance. It takes my full weight leaning against it to push it open, the hinges protesting with a low, mournful creak that raises the fine hairs on the back of my neck. The room beyond is dimly lit by a single monitor, its screen displaying vital signs for a patient I cannot yet see. The green glow it casts creates twisted shadows, that dance across the walls as I move. My fingers search for a light switch, finding one just inside the door. I flick it upward. Nothing happens. "Hello," I call softly into the semi-darkness, my voice sounding thin and fragile. "I'm Nurse Evans. I'm here to check your vitals." The silence that answers me feels deliberate rather than empty. I take another step into the room, allowing my eyes to adjust gradually to the dim conditions. The first details emerge slowly. The outline of a standard hospital bed, the silhouette of an enforced stand, the blocky shape of monitoring equipment. And then, as my vision adapts further, I see the figure on the bed, unnaturally still beneath thin sheets that drape over their form like a funeral shroud. I approach cautiously, the green glow of the monitor washing over me, making my skin appear sickly and corpse-like in its reflection on the polished floor. My nostrils fill with an unfamiliar scent, not the expected odors of antiseptic and illness, but something older and more primal. It reminds me vaguely of turned soil and formaldehyde. The patient appears to be an elderly man, though it's difficult to determine his exact age in this light. His skin stretches taut over pronounced cheekbones, every contour of a skull visible beneath the translucent epidermis. His eyes are closed, sunken deep into their sockets. His chest rises and falls with shallow breaths so slight they're barely perceptible. I reach for the chart hanging at the foot of his bed, my professional instincts temporarily overriding my unease. The name field reads only John Doe. Never a good sign, a hospital. No known relatives, no listed allergies, no medical history. But there's an admission date, May 17th, 2008, 17 years ago. My breath catches. No one stays in a hospital for 17 years. Even long-term coma patients are transferred to specialized care facilities. My eyes scan further down the chart, looking for diagnosis information, treatment plans, physician notes, anything to explain this impossible timeline. The pages are blank except for a single notation on the final sheet. Maintain isolation protocol. Hourly monitoring only. Frowning, I move to check the Ford drip that should be delivering the morphine Diane mentioned. The bag is empty, the line dry. It hasn't been used in days, possibly weeks. I turn to the heart monitor, trying to reconcile its readings with the patient before me. The display shows normal vital signs, impossible for someone in his apparent condition. Following the wires with my eyes, I realize they aren't connected to the patient at all. They disappear beneath the bed instead. Cold sweat breaks out across my forehead as a terrible suspicion forms in my mind. How is this man alive without medical support? Why would the hospital maintain this elaborate charade? I lean in closer, my penlight poised to check pupillary response, a basic test for brain function. My face is inches from his when his eyes suddenly snap open. They are not the clouded, cataract-covered eyes I would expect from an elderly patient. They are piercingly clear, alert, and reflect my light with an amber glow that reminds me of a predatory animal. There is nothing vacant or comatose in that gaze, only terrible awareness and something else I cannot name. "They've sent another one," he whispers, his voice like sandpaper on stone, dry from disuse, yet carrying a strange resonance that seems to vibrate inside my skull rather than reaching my ears through the air. His hand shoots out from beneath the sheet with impossible speed and strength, bony fingers wrapping around my wrist with a grip so cold it burns. I try to pull away, but he holds me fast, his skin papery against mine, yet powerful beyond explanation. 17 years, he continues, those unnatural eyes never blinking as they bore into mine. They keep me here, not as a patient, as a warning. My heart hammers against my ribs so violently I fear it might bruise itself against the bone. "I don't understand," I stammer, my professional detachment evaporating like morning dew under a harsh sun. His cracked lips peel back in what might be a smile, revealing teeth too numerous and too sharp to be human. "They never tell the new ones anything," he says, his breath smelling of earth and decay. Look under the bed. Every instinct screams at me to run, to tear myself from his grip and flee back to the safety of the lower floors. But some terrible curiosity, or perhaps his unnatural influence, holds me in place. I find myself slowly crouching, still in his grip, to direct my penlight beneath the bed. What I see there stops my breath entirely. Nurses' ID badges, dozens of them, scattered across the floor beneath the bed like fallen leaves. Their plastic surfaces are dulled with age, some cracked, others partially melted as if exposed to extreme heat. With my free hand trembling violently, I reach for one, turning it over to reveal a faded photograph and a name: Sarah Martinez, RN. The issue date catches my eye: March 1973. Another badge nearby: Thomas Chun, RN. November 1986. And another: Melissa Washington, RN. February 1995. Badges from every era of the hospital's history, belonging to people I've never heard mentioned despite my years of employment. People who, like me, must have been assigned to this room, to this patient. We all ask too many questions. The old man whispers from above me, his grip on my wrist tightening until I feel the small bones grind together. About the procedures on the 5th floor. Ice floods my veins. There's no 5th floor. I reply automatically. St. Mercy is a 4-story building. I've seen it from the outside countless times. That's what they tell everyone, he rasps, his voice taking on an almost hypnotic quality. That's the first lie. The 5th floor exists only at night, only between 3 and 4 a.m., only for special patients. As if triggered by his words, the overhead lights suddenly flicker on, momentarily blinding me with their unexpected brilliance. I raise my free arm to shield my eyes, spots of color dancing across my vision. When my sight clears, I find myself staring at an empty bed. The sheets are drawn back, the mattress bare and stained with substances I cannot identify. The 4-stand is toppled over. The heart monitor is dark and unplugged, its wires leading nowhere, and the old man is gone. But his grip remains on my wrist, invisible yet undeniable, a band of ice-cold pressure that sends needles of pain up my arm. A glint of plastic on the pillow catches my attention. I step closer, my legs moving as if through molasses, each step requiring tremendous effort against an invisible resistance. A fresh ID badge lies in the center of the pillow, the photograph and text clearly visible in the harsh overhead light. My ID badge: Alexander Evans, RN. But the issue date has been changed to 17 years ago. The door to room 407 slams shut behind me with the finality of a coffin lid, the sound reverberating through the room like a physical force. I lunge for it instinctively, yanking at the handle with my free hand. It doesn't budge. From somewhere in the corridor beyond comes the unmistakable sound of squeaking wheels, a gurney being pushed slowly across the cracked linoleum. Then voices, speaking too low to make out the words, but with the clinical detachment I recognize from surgical procedures. My phone shows no signal, the screen flickering between the time, now 3:47 a.m., and strange symbols I don't recognize. The call button by the bed does nothing when pressed. The wires have been cut, their copper ends frayed and tarnished. That's when I notice something I'd overlooked before. A small elevator in the far corner of the room, partially concealed behind a privacy screen. Unlike everything else on this floor, it appears new. The metal doors gleaming under the fluorescent lights, the call button glowing with an internal light. Above it, where there should be floor numbers, is a single button marked with a symbol I don't recognize, a circle bisected by a vertical line, with 3 horizontal dashes intersecting it. As I watch, frozen in place by terror and that invisible grip still circling my wrist, the elevator's indicator light comes on. Something is coming up. The display shows L, then 1, then 2, then 3. It stops at 4. My floor. I back against the wall, as far from the elevator as possible in the confined space. The invisible pressure on my wrist suddenly releases, leaving behind a band of flesh mottled with bruising in the perfect pattern of fingerprints. The elevator doors begin to slide open with a soft mechanical sigh, revealing a darkness deeper than anything I've seen before. This is not the absence of light, but the presence of something else. A darkness that moves and breathes and has weight and purpose. From within that impossible blackness comes the sound of wheels again, and something being dragged across the floor. Something heavy that occasionally thumps, as if with deliberate motion. The sounds grow closer, approaching the threshold between the elevator and room 407. "Time for your procedure, Nurse Evans," says a voice that doesn't sound entirely human. Too many harmonics layered beneath the words, as if multiple entities speak in perfect unison. "The 5th floor is ready for you now." The darkness reaches out with appendages I cannot see but can feel, cold, clinical, precise in their movements as they probe the air before them. Behind me, the heart monitor suddenly springs to life, its screen illuminating with my vital signs, the beeping increasingly rapid as my fear escalates. I scream then, a desperate cry for help that I know won't be heard 5 floors below. As the darkness spills out of the elevator like living ink, I realize with absolute certainty why none of those nurses, whose badges lie beneath the bed, ever return to tell their stories. The darkness flows around me, tendrils of it wrapping around my ankles, my wrists, my throat with gentle, almost loving precision. It smells of antiseptic and something else, something ancient and patient that has waited in the spaces between floors, between seconds, between heartbeats. The last thing I see before it envelopes me completely is the digital clock on the wall, changing from 3:59 to 4 a.m. The dead hour is ending. Morning approaches for a world that will never know I existed. My final conscious thought, as I'm drawn inexorably toward the elevator and the non-existent 5th floor, is of Diane's trembling hands and averted eyes. She knew. She'd always known. And somewhere, in an office on the 1st floor, she is already updating the schedule for tomorrow night, assigning yet another nurse to check on a solitary patient in room 407. The patient who has never existed. The patient who will be waiting for them, as he waited for me, as he has waited for countless others across the decades. Beneath the bed in the now empty room 407, my badge joins the others in their silent testimony. The overhead lights flicker once, twice, and then go out completely. The 4th floor of St. Mercy Hospital returns to darkness, patient in its hunger, waiting for the next dead hour to arrive. Dear listener, thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. Make sure to subscribe to my channel. Many more terrifying, mysterious, and thrilling stories are coming soon. See you again very soon.